Thank you for sitting with us and having this conversation. I really wanted to start out by hearing more of your story. How did you come to start Braids for AIDS?
Right. So I was living in Ottawa, and I was an HIV/AIDS prevention coordinator. And being in the field, I started to realize the disparities in how funding was being given to organizations, but not really reaching the community, and also that the community voices were not being heard. I was about to get my hair braided, and I saw the word AIDS pop out of the word braids, and that was kind of like my eureka moment. And I said, yes, this is how I'm going to raise funds and continue to engage the community around conversations around HIV/AIDS, because of course here is something that and braiding specifically, something that's so specific within the African and Caribbean community, and we take sometimes 4 to 8 hours, or sometimes have to go home and sleep and come back
Yes.
the next day, and you develop a relationship with your hairdresser, right? And you start sharing a lot of information, right? And so to utilize that community experience, that we have to pass on information. I don't think some of the hairdressers in our community realize how much of that impact that they have on communities and have on individuals that sit down in their hair, not just for that therapeutic aspect of someone playing in your hair, but the knowledge transfer and whatnot. So to again utilize that. So a long-winded thing, but that's the generation of braids for AIDS.
And I think it's funny, just in my own experiences of that, because I remember one of my clients, we were having pretty much like sexual health education while she was sitting in my chair, because she is like, I've never heard of a dental dam. I don't even know what that is. But I feel like I took for granted because, she's grown, she's well into her 30s. I was like, okay. So I was just, having casual conversation with her. So I feel like there's definitely, in my experiences as a stylist, where I can see that there's space for really intimate conversations, because, she went on to share with me that moment gave her space to have other conversations in her own life and her personal life, and
Absolutely.
So I definitely can see, in terms of your vision, how that has played out in my own experience as a stylist.
That's good.
And that has me curious, what do you feel like the role of community is in HIV/AIDS awareness? Like, what do you feel that folks can do who are wanting to be a part of it?
That's a huge question. Community is everything, right? Communities who are affected, impacted, who can be the catalyst for change. Community is everything. We don't live in isolation, right? So when it comes to health and some of the many different issues that us as Black folks face, you see that who are taking up the torch is community, right? You look at like Black Lives Matter, right? You look at some of the other health groups that have been established, the youth groups that have been established. It's all a community, and community don't need to be by a geographic area. Community is who you feel connected to. We can be able to share accurate information around this disease. Now the thing is that a lot of times things are, there's always a shift, and all things have importance, right? But over the years we've seen a shift around the sexual health piece and focusing on like mental health and like physical health, but it is a silent epidemic. You look at places at Atlanta that the prevalence and incidence rates are similar to sub-Saharan Africa, right? Even here in Toronto, it's also seeing that we have some disproportionate rates when it comes to HIV AIDS. So I think that people are forgetting that this is an issue, and really need to wake up. I have people close to me that have been impacted by HIV, AIDS, lost their parents because of HIV, AIDS. So it's not something that is, not within our generation, right?
So if you could share with folks maybe 3 things that they probably should know, but maybe don't know about HIV, AIDS, like what would those things be?
Well, there's a new drug called PrEP, and that is a drug that a lot of people are not aware of, and that if you think that you're at high risk for contraction of HIV, that you can take that drug and it will help to prevent the HIV from actually mobilizing itself into the blood system. Right?
Is that after an interaction or like prior to kind of?
So you take it prior to.
Okay.
But also there's if a lot of times with the rape kits that if you think you have been exposed, then you can go take it within a certain time period, and that will again help to prevent the HIV from entering into the bloodstream, right?
Okay.
So I think that's one of the main pieces. Second thing, that there is now rapid anonymous HIV AIDS testing, because a lot of the stigma attached to going and getting tested is that, I might be they might know who I am, right? And so there's the rapid HIV anonymous, and I'm also putting in the rapid, so that there's now where you can get your test results within 30 minutes.
I feel like sometimes within the conversation around, like, whether it be conversation on HIV or a conversation on like STIs and stuff, that's a big piece of the conversation. Like, how do people have conversations around having safer sex when they want to continue having sex but don't want to be that odd person out who wants to have safe sex? I've talked about this on my channel before, that I've had people legit like make fun of me for being the one that brings it up, being like, you're being a little too intense,
Right.
So what are some of the tips that you have for folks who are trying to navigate having the conversation and don't necessarily know how to have it?
Right. Well, I think the first step is understanding what you want for yourself, right? Before entering into sexual conversations, is having that conversation with yourself, right? And what are your limits and barriers, and if someone is not able to work within those personal boundaries that you've set for yourself, it's probably not the person that you want to be engaging in sex with, right? So from that standpoint in itself, is to start having conversations with yourself from earlier o'clock, right? And having that self-love to say no, right? And then there's always a lot of resources that are out there about having talking about safe sex. Now, if we're talking, for example, with in a heterosexual relationship, right? Maybe the man does not want to have wear condoms, but there's also female condoms, right? So he can say, okay, well, I don't like the feel on this on my on me, but then you can be saying, well, I feel comfortable wearing the female condom, so let us try this and see if this works, right? Again, there are a lot of people have this perception with the use of PrEP that people will just sort of have unprotected sex and then just use PrEP, right? And I think PrEP would be a combination of many different safe sex practices that you want to be utilized, but again, first it starts with that self-love.
Yeah, I'm gonna just add on top of what you said that I feel like it's important folks know you can have great, enjoyable, safe sex.
Absolutely.
I think it's a misconception that safe sex is not enjoyable sex. Like that's a whole another conversation, but it's definitely a misconception.
Absolutely.
And I'm curious from you because I feel like as an entrepreneur, a lot of times what calls us to do this work is something inside of ourselves. Some of our own struggles, some of the things that we go through, some of our own traumas that call us to be like, I want to really do this meaningful work on this planet. I'm curious, like, what really drives you to want to continue to do the type of work you do? Because I know you do Braids, but you also do other types of community work. So what really, drives the work that you do?
Right. I was sharing the other day, and this is really in terms of my work with youth in particular, that there was a shooting of a young man in a community, and I decided that I would attend his the young man's funeral. And as I sat there, as I tell you, I usually have these brain moments where sat there and I thought, I do not want to have a career of funerals. I want to have a career of graduations.
In terms of trying to juggle it all for self-care, how do you take care of yourself within all the different roles and titles that you hold?
Well, I think it's conversations like this, to be quite honest, that kind of give me that grounding, as you mentioned, earlier, that we always have these good conversations. So just having conversations with people that remind me why I do what I do, that make sure that it's always in alignment with my values, right? I have a good family structure that I could rely on. My faith is something that's very important to me, and that anytime that whether things are not going good or if they're going great, I can always just hold on to that piece. I exercise. I haven't exercised.
I just started exercising too.
Yes.
Actually, it feels so good. What would be your 3 tips, if you could share with folks 3 tips for self-care? What would it be?
It goes back again to knowing your boundaries, right? That's 1. 2, listening to your instinct. I went through something 2016, even in the beginning of this year, and I said after that incident that I will always trust my instinct. There's always that voice, always this even if it makes, you need to follow that energy, right? So like if being around somebody feels tense, there's probably something that's lurking. So following that instinct kind of thing, because in this community work, for example, you're always coming around different people, having different interactions or whatnot, and you need to kind of become aware of those energies that people give. And 3, yes, I mean, kind of think it's when you find good people, keep good people. Right? So
yes,
so that's I think my top 3.
Okay. Right, and the common theme is how much we're social beings, how much we truly do need each other, and in needing each other is really the compassion and the love that we can share with each other, and that in and of itself is transformational in our life in so many different ways.
Absolutely. And as I share, like my partner, he always said, are your relationships transactional and transformational? And I always thank you for those times that we've always connected, that it's always been transformational. I always walk away from our conversation just feeling positive and in a different kind of mind. So
thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Well, thank you for standing with me and having this conversation and sharing just a little bit of your story with us.
Thank you.
And if folks want to get in touch with you and hear more about you and the work that you do, how can they do that?
Well, www.braidsfades.com. The other organization which I work with is Frontlines, where I'm the executive director of a youth center. www.frontlines.to. But if you just put my name in to Google, you'll find me.
You will pop up on all the magical things that you do.
Pop up, and you can contact me.
Amazing. Thank you so much.